I'm Angie with Peach Orchard Creations, and welcome to Week 8, Block 7 of the Quilt Camp Quilt Along 2021. This week's block is the bird watching block with a focus on flying geese. It is a block that takes a hair of a bit more time between cutting and piecing, but it's totally worth it at the end with such a striking block that we get to come out with. So let's jump straight into it and we'll get going. This week when you're cutting the pieces, we have lots of really little pieces, so make sure you're using your scraps up to get all that cut up, and we'll dive straight on into getting this block constructed. So the first step that you'll do is you will take all your squares and you will mark the diagonal by using a disappearing air or water soluble or heat disappearing pin, and I've gone ahead and done that. And then you'll just start sewing them onto your colored fabric rectangles. And a few tips when doing this. So you'll take a colored fabric and you will lay the square on it, making sure that it gets all lined up. You can pin if you'd like, I'm not a pinner. And then we're gonna go sew straight on top of this line. You don't even necessarily need to mark each square if your machine has the long center line marking. Mine has a big clear piece of glass or a plastic so I can see the bobbin, so I could just use a piece of washi tape, or I could even mark it with a Sharpie if I wanted, but these squares are actually the perfect size from my needle down to my marking. So another tip here is once you match up the corners, you can actually start sewing on this point so that you're not on a straight 90-degree, it won't get caught in your feed dogs as often if you start here. So again, we're sewing right on top of that line we marked. And then you obviously, another time saving hack here is to chain piece all of these bad boys one after another and just bust them out. So once you've sewn that diagonal, you're going to take a ruler, and I love this Creative Grid ones because it has this 1/4 inch marking. You're gonna lay the 1/4 inch line right along the seam, and then you will trim off the dog, the big triangle. I almost called it a big dog ear, but it's not a dog ear. And then you will press it back. Beautiful. And now you'll take another one that you've got marked and you will lay it just like this, making sure that the line is pointing down towards the other bottom edge. You don't want to get it like this. That's not correct. You'll come out with a parallelogram, I think is what that's called, not the right shape. So you want to make sure that your diagonal line is starting up here where the two fabrics meet and going down to that other bottom edge of the rectangle. Again, flip it, you can start sewing right here. That way you don't have that point getting caught up in your feed dogs. And we'll do that real quick. And again, you're gonna take your ruler, put the 1/4 inch marking right on that seam and chop that off. Press back. Sorry, you can't really see that very well. Press back. And now you've got your perfect little flying geese. I love it because it creates such a crisp point right there. Big things to check when you are checking the size of it. She tells you what size it needs to be in the pattern. And another key thing I like to check for is that the point is right at or just below the 1/4 inch marking on my ruler. And this is measuring spot on. If it's measuring a little larger than what she suggests in the pattern, you can always trim it up. That's not a problem. Mine isn't, so I don't have to do any trimming. These should come out pretty stinking close, but that's what you're gonna do for all of these colors. And like I said, chain piecing is gonna be your quickest way here. Do one side and then do the other. If you want to make sure you're doing it right, just do one color to start off with and do all that color and bust through it like that. So I'm going to go ahead and knock these out, and then I will show you the rest of the assembly after I get these done. So let's go. So now I've got all my flying geese sewn together, and I'm going to lay out the block, and she has great graphics in there, so you're just gonna go ahead and lay it all out, and then actually going to lay it out by row and piece the rows. One thing I will say about this block is it shrinks so bad for some reason, and I think it's because there are so many seams, it really just causes it to shrink. So I'm actually gonna sew a scant 1/4 of an inch, which means if this is my 1/4 inch line, I could feed my pieces of fabric right on top, not past it, but right on top of that 1/4 inch line. I'm actually gonna sew to the inside of the 1/4 inch line, making it a scant 1/4 inch, meaning just slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch. And hopefully that will help me save some, because last time I was a little under, I was like a 15-inch block instead of a 15.5 inch. It really didn't make a difference, except I had to stretch my sashing a little bit more there to make it work, but I'm gonna try to get as close to 15.5, and you two just do your best. And so I'm gonna sew that scant 1/4 inch. So let's go. Again, chain piecing each of these as I go, because might as well. Tip here, I am using my tailor's block because right here you get a bit of bulkiness, and I think that's what causes the block to shrink as well. So when I press it back, I will use some flatter spray and the tailor's clapper block, whatever you want to call it, right there to help flatten that out as much as possible. Gonna piece all of these together, again chain piecing, because I just don't sew any other way. And there you go, the first row, so pretty. Like I said, again, I'm gonna really focus on that scant 1/4 inch. It works out great for all my points. You can see all my crisp points right there. And it also just gives me a little bit of extra when I'm going to square this block up. But it is so pretty and pretty simple too, I think. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock the rest of these out. I've got all my rows together, and I'm gonna piece from the center out like she says. So I'm gonna put this one on here. And the cool part about this, if you pressed where your triangles are flat, like you didn't press into your triangles of your flying geese, which I didn't, the bottom, let's see here, the bottom of the triangle and the top of the little thin, and the bottom of the row you put in there, those will match up. So, and if you pressed everything, like I said, if you press the triangles out, they'll nest. So that's pretty cool. Didn't even do that intentionally, but it worked out, and I'm gonna roll with it. And again, piecing these, I'm even gonna stick with a scant 1/4 inch, because I'm telling you, these puppies shrink. so stinking pretty, beautiful. Here it is, the bird watching block. It's so beautiful. I think it's even as striking on the back. All the seams, all your hard work you can see, and the points are just so crisp and awesome, and I just absolutely am digging it. I'm feeling this one, and it really looks like its name, how she has the rows staggered. So, and that's the bird watching block. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to get your picture posted by Sunday night so you can be entered in this week's giveaway, sponsored by Light and Great Heron. What a fun block. And that our sponsor's name is like Great Heron, like bird watching Great Heron. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. That concludes week 8, block 7 of Quilt Camp Quilts Along 2021, and I will see you next week. So happy quilting. Until then.